Why the American dream became unaffordable for the middle class? Because COVID happened. Yippee.
At the national level, the middle class is typically defined as households with an annual income ranging between $53,740 and $161,200.
Holy shit, I thought the cutoff was like 100K or something for middle class. Damn, I thought that was way lower. Wow, I'm getting educated.
$20. But middle-class Americans like Kyle Connolly from Pensacola, Florida, says life has quickly grown unaffordable.
Financially, things have definitely been a struggle for me. I don't know how, but every single month I somehow managed to get by. And I'm left with, maybe this past month, I was left with $125 in my checking account, and that's it.
Yep, that sounds pretty average. When I first moved out of my parents' house, I was lucky if I had $20 left over at the end of the month. It's fucked.
As of June 2024, 65% of middle-class Americans said they were struggling financially and don't expect their situation to improve for the rest of their lives.
It's a part of the income distribution that has felt a lot of pain in the wake of the pandemic. And it wasn't something that just economists were tracking. It was something that was really felt on the household level. You know, people felt it in their grocery bills. People felt it at the gas pump.
In their own neighborhoods and in their own lives, they have their own expectations for what they can do, where they can go, where they can eat, where they can live. And to the degree that they're facing those pressures on an individual basis, it really is causing quite a bit of an alarm.
75% of middle-income families say they're active.
Oh no, I had school debt, Chad. Don't get me wrong. I'm talking about like medical debt or like credit card debt. I didn't have that, so I had that going for me. Yeah, like I'm not talking about like student debt.
Cutting back on non-essential expenses, with 73% finding it difficult to save for the future.
I have had to reduce all non-essential spending. I have gotten one haircut because it just got out of control, and that's it. That's all that I can afford.
We can do so much better. To all of you watching, we can get back to an America that's affordable again.
There's a strong role for policy.
I can't help but look at JD Vance and just see the fat boy memes, bro.
Affecting the prices of all these essential goods, from housing to childcare to healthcare expenses.
I think there's a lot of scope to have government programs that help the middle class quite a bit more.
So how has the middle class life become so unaffordable for Americans?
The corpos sucked all the fucking balls dry of all the middle class during COVID. I think before that it was already really bad, but I think COVID really fucking put a nail in the coffin for sure. Yeah.
Housing's always going to be typically the biggest bite of a household's budget. I think that's probably a primary issue in terms of why people are feeling that crunch.
I am currently renting, and I would say that the housing is probably about 65% of my monthly expenses.
Which is ridiculous. She should not have to do that. That's ridiculous. 65%. You might as well be fucking paying for a mortgage, but the worst part is that you can't even afford the mortgage.
Where it should be the other way around. It should be 33%.
The median rent for middle-income families has risen by 18% to $1,300 per household between 2001 and 2022.
God, I remember my parents talked about having an $800 mortgage. And that seems like fucking pennies now. You're lucky if you have a $800 mortgage. Holy shit, that's like a dream. Yes, $800. This is like in 2000, like before the recession. Yeah. Yeah, before the recession, this was me like a little kid. I remember them talking about it, so like take it with a grain of salt. But still, I remember it was under 1,000. They were like, damn, that's like pretty expensive.
Just seeing this intense upward pressure on the cost of rent, and that filters through to the cost of buying a house.
Existing home prices hit a record in June 2024, with existing homes selling at a median price of $426,900. According to the most recent analysis, U.S. is facing a shortage of 4.5 million homes. In 2022, families in the U.S. increased by 1.8 million, but only 1.4 million housing units were built to meet the demand.
We've got lots of families who are trying to form, people leave college, they leave their parents' house, they want to buy their own house, and we just haven't seen housing construction.
You don't.
And how old is this? This was 4 months ago? Okay, it's probably gotten worse even in 4 months. I love living in a dystopia!
Build more housing, then housing becomes more expensive. And that's exactly what's happening in a lot of coastal cities and increasingly more and more cities across the United States, so that it becomes very unaffordable to buy a house.
What it amounts to.
What did he just say? Hold on, I saw it and then I fucking zoned out for a second. My parents didn't mortgage like that, but they're also, my dad was in the military, so they got a good deal. Oh, I'm surprised because America treats their fucking vets like shit, so good for you. Like, I'm impressed. I've heard nothing but horrible things. I have a next door neighbor that one of the families across the street is like a vet too.
Our state and local
he says they treat him like crap most of the time.
Really operated over the course of several decades to restrict housing supply.
You know, it's the old story that people in single-family homes in desirable neighborhoods really push back against efforts to build more housing in those neighborhoods. They complain about the parking. They complain about pressure on infrastructure.
Experts say policy intervention is essential to tackling the affordability crisis.
There's an opportunity today to rethink how the federal government interacts with housing markets. We already see this in markets like healthcare in the United States. It's not a purely privatized market. There is a government role, both in terms of investments and also just in terms of thinking about how we organize policies.
We don't need to build public housing in the suburbs, but we do need to build more densely near the city center, allow for duplexes and triplexes.
Yeah, but that makes people upset. That makes businesses upset, and then they start fighting back and lobbying happens.
At least some amount of light touch density that allows...
I don't like dense housing, but I mean, it's sort of a solution. Again, I'm not a fucking economics expert.
More people to live near where their jobs are, and it brings down rents and home prices a bit, even if that's going to not be as good for existing home.
Or you could create jobs outside of like fucking metropolises. That would be great too. But no, we don't want to do that.
Owners.
Add to that we see childcare costs that have also exploded over the years. In some parts of the country, you have households paying upwards of $25,000 per year.
What?
The cost of childcare has risen at more than twice the rate of inflation in the U.S.
That's insane. Like, I've told this story before, but like I worked with a bunch of women at my old job, and they would say that most of their paycheck that they would make would go towards a daycare and preschool. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I obviously never said that out loud because I do have some social courtesy, but like I'm thinking to myself, like, you're putting through all this pain and stress where you could be sitting at home and you only make like an extra $100 to $200 a week or a month or whatever at the end of the day after calculating all your expenses. So you could probably just stay at home and like, I don't know. I feel like I couldn't justify doing that. I don't know. Maybe I'm like being too critical because like I'm obviously not in that same position, but like, I don't know. It just sucks to think about it that way, that like you could, the daycare and preschool solution is that like women used to tend to stay at home and take care of the kids. And now it's like, oh, well, I have to have a double income household because childcare is so expensive and like, I can't take care of the kids and I have to have a job and blah, 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 blah. And it becomes like a compounding problem that like becomes really difficult to resolve.
Increasing by 273% between 1990 and 2024.
We expect these families to go and participate in the labor market, but they need this vital 200%.
Support. We have a system in the U.S. that is just so much you're on your own. Unless you're very, very poor and can get a subsidy.
I'm very fortunate that what I do to earn an income does not require me to have childcare. I would basically be making the equivalent of $7.50 an hour over the summer if I had to pay for full-time childcare for 3 children. It doesn't make sense.
In 2023, 67% of parents reported spending at least 20% of their annual income on childcare.
What? That's... You know what's another, like, underlying factor of this that's really fucked up? Is that families have become so, like, I don't know if this isn't the case for everyone, obviously, because it really depends on the person and their like relationship with their families, but your grandma, your grandpa taking care of you while your like parents are working or your mom wants a break, it used to be pretty common. And now it's kind of like really fallen off because either your parents who are middle class can't afford a home. If you're basically anything but if you're anything above middle class at that point, your grandparents can't afford to not basically take care of your kids because they just can't. They're either fighting to like basically work during retirement, which is really horrible, or their social security goes back into their fucking rent and they can't afford to take care of your kids. Yeah, your parents who are middle class can afford to retire. Yes, that's what I'm saying. Sorry. That's what my poorly phrased brain was trying to make out. Your parents are under a constant strain as boomers or as like late Gen Xers. They can't fucking afford it. And they're just sitting here like, I have to go back to work. And it's like, but I'm meant to retire at this point. I'm supposed to be taking care of the kids. And now that burden is transferring on to like the people that are having children now.
While 89% said they spent 10% or more of their household income on childcare.
And it goes back to fucking
There's
courthouse!
really a marketplace that's still in a bit of disarray. We have shortages in childcare centers. We have childcare workers who really report being underpaid, which then exacerbates the problem.
You sometimes have states or localities insisting on regulations that just don't make sense for childcare, that make onerous restrictions on child-to-staff ratios or certain zoning restrictions on where you can have a childcare facility.
And so again, here, there is an opportunity to...
Why is there a restriction for having a childcare facility? What the hell? Man, I hate the government. What the frick?
Up this labor market and this
Safe for schools, isn't it? Cringe.
We saw some of this effort taking place during the pandemic. In 2021, the United States embarked upon a historic expansion in the refundable child tax credit.
Expanded not just in its generosity, but also in the number of families it reached. It went deep into the middle class. Like often the child tax credit in previous years has just really been a low-income program. This one really spread out, didn't start phasing out until $100,000 or more for a bunch of families.
That was a one-year experiment that expired. You've had policymakers advocating for
and then they never did it
2021
again.
Expanded child tax credit permanent, but it has faced resistance in the Congress.
Of course it did.
Healthcare is another major factor making the middle-class lifestyle unaffordable for many American families. In 2021, about 12.4 million middle-class families had unpaid medical bills.
Welcome to America, baby, where we make money off of your pain. That's right.
Highest among all other income groups.
Healthcare expenses weigh heavily on me because I don't have health insurance personally. My children do, but I don't. Every time I sit down to go ahead and
Poor
look
lady.
for a health plan that would make sense, I get discouraged because what I can afford has like a $15,000 deductible, but I'm giving them $600 a month.
It's pretty well known by now.
So you pay $600 a month for 15 grand.
If you like compare the US to almost any other advanced country, we spend a ton more on healthcare, and we do not get better health outcomes.
The US spends about $12,742 per person on healthcare, the highest cost per capita compared to other wealthy OECD countries.
But you know what's fucked up about Switzerland being the next highest is that you have zero of that. You have zero of that if you're not a citizen. As someone who lived in Switzerland, and I was just short of becoming a citizen because I lived there for a certain amount of time and whatever. That's kind of like besides the point. But in America, like, they kind of just want you to get into debt no matter what. They have some of the best doctors. America has some of the best doctors. What do you mean? We have amazing hospitals and stuff. It's just that it costs a fucking arm and a leg.
However, the country still ranks lower on key health measures like life expectancy and infant mortality when compared to similar nations.
Everything costs more. Doctors cost more, drugs cost more, devices cost more.
It's because the healthcare is so fucking strained too. People are very unhealthy, and that's also why those mortality rates are extremely high. I think we're looking at it from the wrong perspective. I genuinely don't believe that America has a horrible fucking... They don't have horrible doctors. You want to go to a fucking horrible doctor? Go to fucking Russia. They will fucking fuck you up. Ask my parents. They have horrible healthcare most of the time. You can get good healthcare, but you have to pay an arm and a leg. You have to pay above and beyond what the requirement is. But the infinite mortality rate, the life expectancy, you can take a multitude of factors on that. Like, Switzerland doesn't have a fucking obesity problem. Australia does. I don't know. I think this is a little bit... I could get into this, but I won't. It's a little bit skewed.
Key health measures, like life expectancy and infant mortality, when compared to similar nations.
Yeah.
Everything costs more. Doctors cost more, drugs
Diabetes.
cost more, devices cost more.
Patents
and
cost
that, to
more.
me, just seems to be a clear problem of market power in the healthcare sector. And so you've got pharmaceutical companies that unambiguously have market power. That's what patents are. And unlike other countries that really try to leverage some kind of monopsony power against
Insurance is a
pharmaceutical
fucking
companies
scam,
to
man.
sort of countervail their monopoly power. We don't do that much in the US. Besides drugs, you've got growing consolidation in sort of hospitals and specialty providers.
A study by Harvard University discovered that hospital prices in markets with a monopoly are 15% higher in areas with 4 or more hospitals.
We love monopolies in America.
And research from UCLA revealed that monopoly protection increased consumer costs by $52.6 billion across a sample of 355 brand-name drugs. In response to these concerns, the Justice Department launched a task force in May 2024, focused on specifically addressing monopolies
Let me guess, they
inclusion
found
in the
nothing.
healthcare sector.
You want to leverage the power of public buyers of healthcare, you know, to bargain with them and countervail, but then you also want to do antitrust, to say, if you're going to buy up every anesthesiologist in a given area and start price gouging, we're not going to let you do that.
I can't believe this is a thing. It's disgusting. It's despicable that you have the ability with your vast amounts of money to fucking do this. Why is it allowed? You're allowed to just buy out all the anesthesiologists and just set a price for healthcare, of all things.
Actually going to regulate, or we're going to disallow the mergers.
Prices are also rising for essential expenses other than the big three.
The utilities that are just slowly increasing. It's like every month, it's like my usage is down, but why is my bill higher? Obviously, groceries are more expensive.
I wanted to also touch on another thing that's related not to this point, to the previous point. When my parents told me stories of like going to Russia and getting things fixed, the healthcare is fine. It's just that the bare minimum healthcare with doctors is overstrained and overworked as well. It's just you will see someone, they just might not help you very well because they're not paid enough. You can also go to a private hospital and pay an arm and a leg and you'll do just fine. It's like two sides of the same coin. You either get the help you want, you wait in line and get the help, and it might not be great, or you go to a private hospital and pay an arm and a leg, which is what America does anyway, on top of the insurance scam. It's just way worse. It's all just fucked.
It hurts. It really does hurt when I have to tell my children no. When I have to tell them that, sorry, we can't go to this activity because I don't have the extra $120 to spare this month. As a mother, that's kind of like the hardest part.
Rising prices have been a major...
I remember I had a friend where my parents asked if... I asked my best friend if she could come with us to Australia for a trip. And they said, sorry, we can't afford that, like, ticket to fly there and back. And my parents, because, like, they felt bad for me because I was, like, kind of a lonely kid. And we were really good friends. My parents paid for the ticket and for the hotel, like, where we stayed at. So we had a great time. Like, one of the best vacations ever because I got to be with my best friend. But those parents were like super grateful, and they just basically said like straight up like, we can't afford it. I'm sorry. Like, we can't go to Australia. Like, we can't let your best friend go. And I'm like, oh, that's so sad. My parents are very sweet. They did do that. They did do that for me. Are you still friends with them? No, this is a long time ago. There was like childhood friends, you know, you grow apart. But that's besides the point. I totally get saying no to your kids and being like, sorry, you can't go, Timmy, and then it breaks their heart.
Talking point for the 2024 election.
For Harris and Trump, focusing on the middle class, speaking directly to promises of building the middle class or rescuing the middle class, these are promises
Sadly.
that in some way offer an umbrella pitch for why they are the best candidate for the health of the U.S. economy.
I was raised as a middle class kid. And I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America.
She wants to build 3 million new homes over the courses of her potential administration, increase the supply of housing, and lower the price.
I remember that. I remember reading about that.
On hidden junk fees and other corporate pricing practices that she sees as the reason for high prices. For Harris, a lot of boosting the middle class comes down to putting more money in the middle class's wallet.
I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life. $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers.
For Trump, he's painting his candidacy as sort of the change campaign. People are sick of the economic status quo, and he wants to be the person to relieve them of the economic pain that he sees as the result of, you know, a disastrous Biden-Harris administration.
I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country.
For him, lowering prices and ending inflation is a matter of growing the...
I will say this, politicians promise nothing but pretty lies. I will say that. This did not wage well at all. This was 4 months ago. When did they release this video? October. Yeah. Wait, what? Yeah, October. Yeah, it was right before the election. That's strong.
Economy as a whole. A lot of his proposals, economists have analyzed and said they could threaten to repeat inflation in the short term.
Would have
things like
money.
his tariff proposals that would increase producer costs for manufacturers, which could then translate to higher consumer prices.
We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world.
He says, look at the long term. Once we grow the economy in the long term, that value is going to trickle down and outweigh any short-term costs or pain that you feel from the immediate implementation of some of his plans.
The middle class is really a component of the American experience that, you know, many people aspire to. It really does connote a feeling of opportunity, not just for that family, but for their children's and really future generations. I think government policy is really central to thinking about the challenges facing the middle class today. And it would be beneficial if more Americans had a feel for how these policies interact with and really affect the well-being of their families.
I'm gonna be honest, I am not a middle-class family of like 4 people. I can't say, but coming from a middle-class family, I will say that it has been fucking hard. I remember when the recession happened, when 2008 happened, and my parents were like sitting down and being like, all right, Christmas, we might not get you 2 presents. You get 1 present. And I'm like, oh, why? So even it affects like little kids at that point. I remember I was so pissed because one of the presents was like a fucking stuffed toy from my dad's job. It was like a business toy, and they were like, but you like ponies, right? And I was like, this is just a fluff present. You know, it's like a stocking stuffer, it doesn't actually do anything.